way Paul Soglin can win the state of Wisconsin. And that isn't to say that somebody who's actually more of a radical, more of a, outsider, somebody who's an actual leftist could defeat Scott Walker. If you had somebody who was a polar opposite of Scott Walker, I bet they could win if they weren't entrenched in the Democratic Party. But Soglin is this guy that, he was a socialist mayor, and now he's just like this Bernie Democrat.
Now he's just a big bureaucrat.
It's just
and you can tell what his vision is for downtown, for Madison as a whole. He wants people not in cars. He wants people not drinking on State Street. He's squelched new liquor licenses, and he doesn't want people to entertain on State Street anymore.
Yeah, you went to the French fry place to have a beer license, and then they went under.
He totally screwed her.
He had a bad experience once with a cab driver, and then he banned all cabs from going on State Street for what was a year and a half.
He wants this little paradise that doesn't really exist, where people aren't in cars, people are upper middle class, they're spending way too much on condos, they're walking around in a very peaceful, very sterilized urban environment, and it's not a real urban environment. You can't have it both ways, and that's what he wants. And the underlying issue here is that Paul Soglin is a progressive in the sense that he thinks he knows what's best for everybody.
He's the regressive progressive.
He thinks he knows what's best for everybody, and he can manage the color of people downtown and the income of people downtown, and whether they have a car or not, and all these different things just by managing land policy and what the police have.
He just wants to sweep everything under the rug.
He wants a nice, pretty legacy, and he made that clear when we were talking. And I personally spoke to him about the situation of Uber and Lyft and State Street, and the issue when he this last time got elected, and it was the issue of cabs being on State Street. He was trying his best to not have cabs on State Street, disregarding the fact that people need to get off State Street when bar time.
Yeah,
those are the people
that's a safety issue.
Those are the people that are peeing on things and barfing on storefronts and destroying things.
He has triggered my safe space.
But his State Street is his legacy. If you talked about that, you get like a 20-minute lecture on, well, in 1973, we applied for this federal funding and blah, blah, blah. It's almost like it's his penis. Forgive me. It's almost like that's his thing. He's in the city-county building, and his legacy, his political manhood, his political virility is this extension of himself that goes all the way down State Street. And if something happens to that, if it's not clean, if it's not retail, if it's dirty, if it's urban, if it's just the way that life is in most cities in the United States now, that's not good enough for him.
Meanwhile,
he's got to manage it.
There are a dozen poor people sitting right at the bottom of this building, 200, 300 feet over, and he's actually sitting somewhere watching them on the security cameras. He does this. He openly talks about it. He watches the poor on these security cameras.
I'm pretty sure he gets on the radio and says, Officer so-and-so, could you please go over and clear those people off the bench?
He reminds me of, look at a picture of Soglin. Do this right now. Look at a picture of Soglin.
I don't think we have one right here.
Find a picture of Grumpy Cat. Put the two of them right next to each other. I swear it. And I could get into the politics of how he has been so bad about the allowing Chief Koval and the police to do whatever they want. There's no conflict of interest.
Another killing, Tony Robinson, which he didn't handle very well.
Oh no, he blames the protesters for their actions in the end. Like he tells the protesters that they're doing things wrong, and we need to educate the children. No, we need to educate the cops not to shoot unarmed people. I mean, the majority of the Madison cops act appropriately. It's a very small percentage that go completely, in an inappropriate manner. But that's, I could go on about that. That's a whole other thing. The next thing?
We're coming up to a break, Miles. But you're right on time talking about the police, because as we go into this break and come out of it, we're going to have Matt Bughman, our insider in Milwaukee law enforcement, joining us hopefully via Skype. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
I got to get back to my capitalism.
Thanks for being patient, everyone. FreePeopleShow.com and on Facebook. Back shortly. $6%? 7%? That's a lot of money. I might as well just do it myself. Well, that might be true, if a lot of that money you're paying a real estate broker is going toward outdated methods, unnecessary fancy offices, and overpaying executives for a lifetime of service. But you don't need to go that route. Silver Compass Realty is a full-service real estate brokerage serving all of South Central Wisconsin, and the commission is negotiable. Silver Compass will explain exactly what they're going to do to help you buy or sell a home, how that will help you reach your goals, and stand right beside you every step of the way. They want to be your broker, your expert, even when you're not in the middle of a transaction. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Contact them today at silvercompassrealty.com or call 608-361-8608. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home.
Burger House 41 is open at 1860 West Mason in Green Bay. You're invited to indulge in one of life's simplest pleasures, a great burger. We're grilling up 15 fresh signature burgers and have over 30 craft beers for the perfect pairing. Experience Wisconsin's best flavors, including white cheddar cheese curds, a variety of specialty sandwiches, milkshakes, and gourmet frozen custard. Burger House 41 at 1860 West Mason is open at 11 a.m. daily. Taste Wisconsin. Taste amazing.
Would you like to experience being one of the free people who produce their own meat and eggs? PurelyPoultry.com has both the chickens and supplies you need to raise your own poultry.
Would you like pets who produce eggs you can barter with? Your own source of clean meat?
A swan on your pond to make your home strikingly beautiful?
How about some pheasants and quail roaming in your woods for enjoyment? If so, check out PurelyPoultry.com.
And we're back. Free People Show at freepeopleshow.com. We are experiencing yet more technical difficulties. Matt Bughman has called into our caller line, but we're unable to hear him at this point. I think he can hear us, though, but we can't hear him, which is really important. So we'll continue to cover the topic, though. As I mentioned early in the show, a lot of news this week involving the police and shootings that had happened in the past, and miscarriage of justice in Sheboygan. And it brings up the topic, what is an appropriate relationship between the police and citizens and our justice system and citizens? We used to have this idea that people were innocent until proven guilty, and that people had the right to carry firearms, and that a person of color could go wherever they wanted to go, and that there shouldn't be this constant tension. Part of the problem is that law enforcement hasn't acted appropriately in all these cases, and I know that that Matt feels the same way. He won't be as specifically critical as I might be, but certainly not every case has gone by the book. But the problem, though, is that politicians, and the media to a certain extent, and people that represent different kinds of divisions, different kinds of categories of people, use this to their advantage. So to a certain extent, the people in Black Lives Matter or similar groups or similar constituencies are going to look at every shooting of a police officer shooting a black person and make assumptions about it, and look for assumptions about it, because the way that they prosper, the way that they further their cause, the way that they speak to people who support them is by characterizing the relationship between the police and people of color in those terms always, and promoting that worldview, which isn't always accurate. On the other hand, there are people who believe, pretty much are happy to believe, that the cops are generally always right. Even in the specific case, the Philando Castile case, where it looked pretty obvious from the Facebook video taken by his girlfriend, Diamond, right after the shooting, it looked pretty clear that the police officer was at fault. There's still people, ever since it happened, all the way up until the verdict, and even after the verdict, who assumed that the police officer was acting correctly and defended the police because they have invested, for whatever reason, they invested personally, politically, in the idea that they support the police, always. And they're the same sort of people who always, thank police officers for their service. And I think demographically, they're probably the same people who always thank people who served in the military for their service. And as has been a subject of controversy in the Libertarian Party lately, especially, not everybody joins the military for patriotic reasons. Some do. And even those patriotic reasons can be held in question, because what does it mean to be patriotic and join the military if you know or have reason to believe that we're committing murder overseas on behalf of the United States government, and so all of that can be called into question. But I think we have Samuel signaling me that we do have Matt with us on Skype. Is that correct, Matt? Are you with us? I think he was there a minute ago and we lost him. We're going to effort on getting him back. We're just hearing a crackling. He's trying to reach us. He's all the way in Milwaukee. Does the internet go all the way to Milwaukee? I don't know if Milwaukee has internet yet. I know one of the big issues in this next government. Oh, sweet. Well, thanks for joining us, Matt. Matt Bughman, thanks for joining us, despite all of our difficulties on this end in having our operation together. Joining us live via Skype from Milwaukee. Matt is a veteran of Milwaukee law enforcement, currently serving, and I had asked him to come on tonight because I'd like to hear a libertarian law enforcement representative talk about not only how things are on the ground in Milwaukee, but his view on the Castile situation and the slew of situations that we've been subjected to over the last few years in police violence. Thanks for joining us tonight, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be on. First, I got to say before we kind of get going is that these are my personal views and that they don't reflect any law enforcement agency or policies or their opinions. These are all my views and my own. So, but I'm happy to be on talking with you.
Thank you. So tell us what it's like. You know, I think everyone's sort of prepared for some rioting after the officer who killed Sylville Smith was acquitted. Did that happen at all in Milwaukee over the last couple of days?
Not that I'm aware of. I think everything was relatively quiet. Fortunately, I think cooler heads prevailed, and everything was relatively quiet.
Well, I saw that his sister came on and was urging everybody to be peaceful. So I think when members of the family people who are upset about a situation like that tend to sort of channel their feelings with and to, if those people are acting calmly, I think that goes a long way to keeping the situation peaceful. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the same interview you did, and I think that did go a long way. Absolutely.
So tell me about your impressions of that situation versus the Philando Castile situation. I know that when we talked about it recently, you had a differing opinion about how both of those cases played out and both of those incidents played out.
Well, I think when we talked about them before, it's kind of they're kind of comparing apples to oranges,
Right.
Two separate incidents, and it's easy to kind of lump things together, but two separate incidents, two totally separate circumstances. In one case, the one in Milwaukee, you have a guy running with a gun. The one in Minnesota, it's a completely different circumstance. Both cases, you're dealing with minority officers shooting another minority. So I guess you can see some of the similarities, but they're both the circumstances leading up to it. Two totally different things. I'm not sure how to really put it.
Well, let me ask you more specifically then, I guess. So you watched after it happened the girlfriend's Facebook video of the situation in Minneapolis and how that played out, and then just recently the police dash cam video was released, and that sort of shed some new light on the situation. Do you have any particular insight as to whether that officer, how he must have been feeling during that situation? I know that one of the underlying issues was that they thought that the car was similar to something that had been used in a robbery or something like that. So there was some reason for there to be tension or apprehension. So when you watch the dash cam video, you see the officer approach on the driver's side, but then the other officer on the sidewalk side sort of, more cautious than my experience has been with traffic stops, but there's some underlying reasons for that. So when the officer's walking up to the driver to talk to him, it must be in his mind that there's a chance, maybe it's remote, I don't know, but there's a chance that this is somebody that's already being looked for by the police. So does that color how he's approaching Philando in terms of what he's doing with his hands, or what's the protocol for that?
It's funny because that was what was really, originally when they talked about that case, that's what they had really put out there. He talked about how he thought this was involved in a robbery, I think is what they had talked about, some type of robbery. And that's what led up to this whole incident. And then they released that dash cam video, and you watch it, and it didn't really, just from watching it, it didn't really appear that that's how they would have been approaching a car that they thought would be involved in a robbery. I don't know, just from watching it, they kind of look nonchalant